Hey everyone, this is Paul, and you are listening to season 2, episode 14 of the Generation Latino podcast. Guys, I hope you're having a wonderful day. It is almost Thanksgiving, and it is my favorite holiday. Halloween and Thanksgiving are my two favorite times of year, so I am really, really excited. I just wish it was a little cooler so I could start wearing my flannels and all of my cute little sweaters, but it's a little hot here in Texas, so I will not be wearing that quite yet. I'm also excited for the new Wicked movie that's coming out in a couple weeks. Super, super excited about that. I really hope you enjoyed last week's episode with David Archuleta. David was such a delight to talk to. He was funny, he was charismatic, he was charming, and I just learned a lot more about him as a fan and someone who's been following him since American Idol. So if you like that episode, please like it, please share it. And again, I'm on all streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. So you can listen to the Generation Latino podcast everywhere. But in today's episode, we are going to talk about the stigma on mental health for Latinos. So today I have a very special guest. His name is Jacob Rodriguez. I know Jacob from the gym. He is my CrossFit coach. He is also in the mental health field. So when I got to know him a little bit more, I was very fascinated by him. And there are several reasons why. He is a straight Latino who is in mental health, and he's aware of the importance of mental health. And I'm going to be quite honest, that is rare to find in the Latino community. So I asked him if he would be willing to come on so we could talk about fitness, mental health, and he said absolutely. So we chatted for a long time. He was so much fun to have. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, When Mental Health Meets Fitness, featuring Jacob Rodriguez. Hope you enjoy, guys. First of all, thank you for being on the Generation Latino podcast. My whole premise of this podcast is to get like-minded Latinos, first, second, third generation Latinos on here and break the stigma behind Latino culture. Sometimes we get stuck in habits that we grew up with. And I know you and I have talked about this at the gym. And one thing that really fascinated me about you was the fact that you are a CrossFit coach and you are also in the mental health industry. It's very rare that I meet someone who has combined the two together. Like I've said before, I think a lot of people fixate on one or the other and they don't really blend the two. Slightly introduce yourself to my audience. And again, thank you for being on.
Thank you for even just thinking of inviting me. I've never done like an actual podcast, so to be in this one is pretty cool. I'm extremely honored and thank you. But yeah, my name is Jacob Rodriguez. I coach at the gym that you are at. I've been coaching for 4 years, and I've been at this gym since I was 17. Uh, and right now, I'm in my master's program for UTSA for mental clinical health in terms of counseling. I'm hoping to hopefully be able to have the opportunity to have my own practice. And particularly, like we've mentioned earlier, I want to be able to facilitate a practice where I not only get to have counseling clients for their mental health, but also have a gym that's meshed with it and implement the physical fitness part of it.
So, what led you into both the mental health part and fitness?
That's a great question. I wasn't originally wanting to be a counselor. I knew growing up in high school, I wanted to help people in some shape or form. My original career choice was being in law enforcement. My dad was a SAPD, currently still is, but now he's in a different unit. But wanted to be an SAPD officer for patrol. And then as time went by in high school, the amount of stress that I would get with just my dad being there was a little bit too much. And it just, for my character and my personality, I couldn't go out of my way to stress out my family. And so decided not to do that. And then I wanted to go into medical school and become a surgeon and even go into researching and helping with cancers and other diseases. And after that, it was high in demand. I was ready for it. And then once I found out the amount of schooling you had to do, I was like, absolutely not. And so then I decided to switch into law because I was like, well, if I can't do police, I can do lawyer. So I wanted to go into civil law, and my stepdad's brothers are in law. So I wanted to do that. And then during school and my undergrad, I was taking my major in law, and then I had my minor in sociology. I had to take a elective, so I took a psychology class. After one psychology class, I was like, okay, screw that sociology. I'm gonna make this as my major now and go into counseling. So that kind of started up the journey for that. But it's always been just helping people, wanting to help people in some shape or form. So now that I'm near the end and going to actually get the licensing and officially get into having my own clientele is pretty crazy.
So you say that there was a class that you took that shifted your way. Was it a specific topic about psychology that made you shift?
It was more of just taking a general psychology course. And it could have been maybe the way my professor at the time presented it, and they were super enthusiastic. And I think just the way it was brought to me when I took the course, it had all the qualities that I was looking for in a career that I had wanted to do previously, which again was helping people, but getting to understand why people behave the way they do and why we are in a society that we are, and being able to maneuver those things and acknowledge that sometimes we see people walking by and automatically assume that someone could be having a bad day or whatever, but we don't know because we don't talk to them. And I think that course made me acknowledge that there's truly things that we don't see in the background or behind the curtain, rather, unless you have conversations with those people. And I think after that course, it really opened my mind of like, wow, I want to know more about that. And I want to know why the brain reacts the way we do, why we do certain things, whether it's through culture, through uh, growing up with different backgrounds, a religion. I mean, you can name it. I think it was just the way it was presented at the time I was in it that caught my attention.
People don't really talk about the impact that professors have on their students, but that's the power of not just professors, but education. Like if someone teaches something the right way, you are going to want to continue to learn more about it. So I know for me, there's been professors that have really helped shape the way that I do things. But as a grad student, how do you balance grad school and coaching?
This semester in particular was something that I think was the test on really balancing out those things. I mean, as you know, I also compete, and fitness has been, since I started, has been a big part of mine and my family's life. My whole family and I started at our gym when I was 17, so right near the end of my high school time, and I was in football. So having that transition was very impactful. It got my mom out of being pre-diabetic. My dad lost so much weight. He started competing with me, and it kept this functional lifestyle for my entire family to, acknowledge that moving and eating well and getting good sleep is super important. So because of that, it's embedded into me that that is a priority in terms of my own health, of course. And through a counseling perspective, self-care is super important as we go on through counseling, and should be just a general thing. Self-care should be extremely important. But in terms of balancing it out, this semester has been really about identifying where I'm able to fit it in, because of course everybody's got schedules, and for me in particular, having to have clients in person, actually now that I've in the clinical era of my hours, it's really been about just fulfilling their needs, but also reminding myself self-care is so important for myself and making that as a priority as well. So I think that has been where I'm able to balance out meeting in the middle on helping others, but also making sure I'm helping myself, because without that, I'm not going to be able to do a good job.
When did you first realize you wanted to help people both mentally and physically?
I think when I started with counseling, I was all in towards counseling and I was all in towards wanting to help people mentally. And I think it wasn't until 4 years ago when I started the program, I started coaching. And in the middle of coaching and getting to meet you and all our other members there, I was like, well, damn, I like coaching too. And I wouldn't mind coaching and having my own gym and doing that with my family too. And so that was kind of a little battle that I had at a point in time where I wanted to make sure that I was still satisfied with counseling and knew that if I ever wanted to coach, I could, which goes back to what I said about hopefully when I graduate and get my own practice, why not just put both of those together?
Hispanic and Latino men make up 5 to 6% of therapists in the US. With that being said, as a Latino man working in mental health, what has your experience been like in that space?
It's humbling. It truly is humbling. And first off, that's bizarre that it's that low. But I'm also not surprised because, as you know, right, in Hispanic and Latino culture, it's not common for particularly males to express their feelings
Mhm.
in general, right? I mean, we've talked about it when we're at the gym, like our fathers were, particularly our fathers figures, were never expressive on their emotions. And I mean, for mine, still to this date, is still not expressive. I think as he's gotten older, he's gotten a little bit more open, but it's very short and it's very dry. So it's an honor for me to have the ability to break that cycle. Even for my brother too. I think we were lucky to grow up with a mom who really supported us and really kept it in our mind that we are always allowed to express our feelings and be able to communicate, and it's okay to have those feelings because it's what a human should be. I believe it to be true where you hide those emotions or you put those emotions so far down that it does tend to affect your physical body, right? You lose sleep, you lose appetite, you become irritable, all those negative things start to stack up. I think honestly, it's unfortunate that it's so low, but I hope hopefully others in our culture can change the cycle and break that continuous chain that's been going on for so long that we hopefully do get to have more males expressing their feelings.
Do you see yourself in the spaces that you're in, with whether it's school, internship, anything that is related to mental health? Do you see yourself being the only one like you there as a Latino male?
Unfortunately, yes. With my site that I'm at, I am the only boy,
Mhm.
the only young Hispanic boy. I was super nervous going to the site because my first day there, I was like, "Oh shit." I think too, knowing the fact that I grew up with my mom and my grandmother and like a lot of girls in my life, that I think my attitude and my persona towards the other females in my workspace didn't feel any particular way towards me negatively. I think they embraced like, "Oh my gosh, there's a guy in here that is super kind, he's thoughtful, he's caring, he cares about everybody else, and he wants to be here." And I think that that really changed the atmosphere. I would love for there to be more people
Yeah.
that can come in after me that are males and Hispanics. I mean, even minorities. Like I'd rather have some minorities too, and I think that's important also, but I think it's realistically, that's gonna be very interesting if there were not any. I would love for there to be, but as of right now, I don't see it happening yet.
I myself am very aware of the lack of representation. I'm going to be honest right now, straight Latino men in that field. And that's just being honest. You kind of spoke on this briefly, but what are some stereotypes or cultural expectations you've had to unlearn about masculinity, strength, and vulnerability?
For sure, one has been expressing my emotions and feelings. I think even for myself, when I communicate with clients, I bring my own situations to an extent, not to negatively put it on the client who's dealing with the negative stuff, but showing that sort of report on like, "Hey, I know what you're going through in some shape or form." And typically, sometimes that's very hard for me to do because I'm doing that to a stranger than I would do it to my family who I'm even closer with to express my feelings. So that has definitely helped me be more vocal about my own personal situations that have happened in my life that have made me who I am. And I'm grateful for the things that I was brought up with it being okay to letting other clients that I have, whether they're Hispanic or Latinos or other minorities, that, you take your time on how you want to tell me whatever it is you're feeling or however it is what's going on. But as counselors, we can't emphasize enough that when it's just us two, it's a safe space. I have a particular male who's Latino and is younger, in his 20s, early 20s. And we've talked about expressing feelings. And we had a similar conversation like we are right now about how it is hard to communicate. And he's like, but I feel good communicating with you because you are a male, you are Hispanic, and I don't feel pressured or negatively pressured in a certain way if it was with someone else. So to me, that makes it even better. And why, again, it should be important to have a diverse amount of counselors from all backgrounds, because then that allows change for our culture in particular to acknowledge that it's okay to be vulnerable. It just shows that you care about certain things.
I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. How does your identity shape the way you show up for your clients or your community?
I try to keep it the same as I would in the gym, firsthand. So I try to come in with the same attitude as a coach. I want people to know when they come in that they're taken care of, whether it's physically from being at the gym or mentally, in the counseling session. But I try to stay as balanced as possible because I know the first interaction you get from somebody, it pans out how the rest of your day is, or it pans out how the rest of that hour is when you're meeting with that person. And so for me, I try to come in with positive energy. And even if you didn't sleep good, I want you to know, like, hey, it's okay. You're here to be here. You made it, which not a lot of people can do on certain days, right? And so I kind of implement that same thing for my clients and just acknowledging that they are in good hands.
I can attest to your positivity in the gym and your awareness of people's emotions and knowing when to give as a coach, when to take back as a coach, when to know what the clients need on the fitness part. I'm sure now
Mhm.
coaching for over 4 years, you can sense now when somebody comes in what type of day they're having.
I think too, particularly through the master's program, I've always been an observant person. And I think through my program, I think that's heightened my ability. So I can tell, I mean, I don't like to say that, but when people come in, I can already diagnose and see certain implications of what could be wrong. Because, like I told you before, when people come in or you see someone come in and they have a certain expression, your mind's already wanting to assume 80 million things at once, right? And so for me, I feel like I've been able to observe so much now in terms of not just the fitness part, but the mental health and being able to see that in person too now. It's played hand in hand. So now it's easy for me to know, like, if someone's not doing well on a lift or they're just not feeling it, it's normal for me to be like, hey, you doing okay? Did you get some sleep? Did you eat good? Did you get in an argument? Like, whatever. And it's not just like I'm counseling you, but it's what good people do. If you see someone in a different persona than they usually are, the right thing to do, check on them. And I think that's something that we lack as a community, checking on someone. Then instead we just give these negative assumptions like, oh, they're pissed off, so I'm going to be bitchy to them too. It's like,
Yeah.
no, maybe they didn't get to eat today, they had to skip lunch and so they're hungry, right? It could be anything. But yeah, I feel like between the two, my observations have helped a lot in a sense of being able to tell what to properly say to somebody, whether it's in the physical or the mental part of the person.
You are really good at not allowing things to annoy you or agitate you. And I'm speaking as a client in the gym. And I'm like, man, he's so calm and collective. And me, I'm a little bit more vocal with things that I need or that I want. What parallels do you see between mental health and fitness, and how do they feed into each other?
So I will say, and I say this to my clients from counseling and then to you guys as well. I think the biggest thing is they play more hand in hand with anything else. In terms of fitness, right? I always, and I'm sure you, Paul, have heard me say it a bunch of times. If you're not mentally here in the gym, the chances of you getting hurt or not having good lifts is significant. That's also the same damn thing for counseling. You get sick, you start losing sleep, you start becoming irritable. Like I mentioned before, all those negative things that start happening to the body, you start needing to depend on medication that you don't even need because you're allowing your mental mind to take over the body. So if you're not mentally strong, your body's going to follow, and vice versa. Your body's not strong, your mind's going to follow that too. And they're both extremely valuable parts of who we are as individuals.
Do you think it's as hard as people think it is to balance the two? Why do you think people struggle with that balance?
And I think it becomes the point of like convenience. I think that's, and being able to, like you mentioned to me earlier or asked me earlier about balancing out, that's the biggest issue for a lot of people is finding the time to balance both and being able to make time because there's 24 hours in a day. You're telling me someone can work and not have any time to do any fitness or any self-care, right? So to me, it doesn't make sense. You should be able to fit in something. And like we talked about earlier today, even if an individual can have 30 minutes once a week of just moving, and then from there, once you get that into a consistent routine, start adding it to an hour. And then from there, you do it twice a day, same thing. And then you progressively do it till you can successfully balance it out. The biggest take on that is, I think, being able to manage time.
I agree. And that's why I asked, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with the balance. I know for myself, I'm very big on boundaries. I'm very big on balance. And I know sometimes when I tell people, like, "Well, just go and do it," and they're like, "What's easy for you to say?" I'm like, no, I think it is easy. You just got to make the time.
100%. I mean, even for like relationships, my biggest goals for myself in terms of fitness, like we can do whatever it is you want to do. But the biggest thing is that I have to work out because I know it is my way of coping through stress, through any negative emotion. The gym is my safe space and you take it or leave it. Like that has always been a foundational part of my lifestyle, which Paul, like you said, you can make time. It's a matter of starting it in some shape or form, and then from there, progressively changing it to be able to say, oh, yeah, it's as easy as you think it is. That's all it is.
How do you keep yourself grounded when things get stressed or overwhelming?
That is still a work in progress. I think since I've been with clients and have provided tools for them, depending on what their circumstances are, I kind of take some of those things that I've suggested and use it for myself. So, like one of them, like you said, grounding, breathing exercises is definitely one that I think helps a lot. Whether it's by yourself, you can exaggerate the breathing if you want to get yourself self composed. Music is definitely one that has always been my number one. I guess number two, gym would be the first. So I would definitely say those things for sure. Or even drawing has always been something I would do when I was younger. But then once I started working out and competing, it became more of a fitness thing. So definitely working out and then having some good music and even taking long drives is something I've always enjoyed
Would the long drive be by yourself or with someone?
by myself. And sometimes it will be without music. So if it's a long drive, it'll be no music. And I just have the windows down and I'm just driving.
Yeah, when I leave work, I don't listen to music really. On my way to work, I'm jamming on the way to the gym, but by the end of the day, I don't want to hear anything but my thoughts at that point.
Yes, I'm the same way. Especially like when I'm at school and I leave downtown to come back home, I don't have anything on. I have the windows down and I'm just listening to the streets, the cars come by. It's super peaceful for some reason.
Obviously, we know CrossFit is a huge love of yours, but what is one lesson from CrossFit that you apply to your life outside of the gym?
I think the biggest thing is that it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes happen. And sometimes you just got to keep going. As you know, sometimes workouts come, and whether it's doing heavy lifts on a bar, you miss the lift, you go right back to it again and you try again. And I think that that's a very important thing is like we go through unfortunate situations, heartbreaks, loss of family members, friends, whatever the situation can be. But at the end of the day, you get back up and you keep going and keep going and trying to be the best version of yourself, even after all that happened.
The biggest lesson I learned from CrossFit was a reset button. You can reset. And I've taken that in my career, in my life. Some people just want to go and lift the heaviest and be the strongest and the fastest. And I see that every day. And it's almost like a disservice, in my opinion, that people see it like that. Because I'm not looking at the person next to me. I'm just really trying to just get through it. Because at the end of the day, in your life, you literally only have yourself. And I think people have a hard time and they're so caught up with everyone else. And it's such a disservice to them. Like, I'm here for me. Like, I don't care how high you jump. I'm just doing me.
And I think that goes hand in hand to like what we see through social media.
You're almost done with school. What is something that you've learned in your master's program that changed the way you see people or even yourself?
I think communicating in general has definitely been something I've noticed is very different. And as well as being able to, again, not go off of assumptions. Crystal, she told me if you negatively assume and you say something negative, you can't take back those things. And so for me, it's always been being mindful of, okay, they're probably being a certain way because something else is going on. Don't automatically be ugly back because at the end of the day, that doesn't do anything but make both of you mad. And then everybody's not in a good mood until you talk later on. You're like, oh, I was just having a bad day. It's like, oh, I thought you were mad at something, right? When it could have all been put away if you would have just asked, hey, are you doing okay? So I think the biggest take for that would be removing the assumptions.
I agree. There's a book called The Four Agreements. Assumptions have created such bad things on this planet.
Assumption kills.
Yeah. What's the challenge you faced that became a turning point for your growth?
Honestly, when my parents split, I think started the initial type of groups I wanted to work with in terms of counseling. Our parents were with together for as long as I was around, so like 8 years, and then they split. That being said, the way my mom was after the separation, she was having a hard time sleeping. She was crying all the time, didn't want to eat. We were always at my grandparents' house. You're having to mature to help take care of your family because now you're the only male in the house, right? With my mom. I think that was a turning point. But that really pinpointed like I wanted to know why the brain worked the way it does. The diagnosing for mental disorders or types of behaviors. I was so curious. I think the curiosity came to me more than anything. And I think that's what started pushing me out towards wanting to help people because I want to help people identify what it is that's really wrong and then be able to find those tools and resources to fix it as much as possible. If for some reason I didn't decide to do the practice of having both the gym and the mental health counseling, I know I can always go and counsel police officers. I can go counsel the medical field. Counseling is universal to other types of careers. And I think honestly, like, everybody should have a counselor or a therapist. Even therapists should have therapists of their own too, because it's healthy. And I feel like the world would be completely different if everybody was able to have their own therapist.
I agree. So, Jacob, how do you personally define strength beyond the physical?
I think it's within yourself. And for me, as a counselor, I try to emphasize person centered theory, which is basically self acknowledgement. Like you mentioned before, it's you versus you. And I think you can have all the support from your family, friends, coworkers, if you're religious, whoever your belief is. But I think it's yourself. The determination, even willpower of doing it yourself, I think is where the true strength comes from. In reality, it's you that has to want to do it. And having the strength to do that because you want to is the biggest thing, I think, is where you get your strength from. If it's not through the physical aspect, it's within yourself.
No, I agree. I think people think that it's pure physical. Sometimes when you're on that floor, it's your mind that's telling you to get back up. When you are afraid to do something, if you are afraid to go into an interview or a big moment in your life, it's your brain that makes the first move. It's the mind that makes the move before the body does. I think people forget that. Speaking of strength, if your life had a hype song that plays before every big moment, what would it be? And I know you love music. I don't think people realize when you're about to like give up, it's that music that helps. But what would be your hype song?
Yeah. Like you said, I love music. I grew up with my grandparents live in the 60s. So I listened to like the Temptations, Smokey Robinson, every genre. I love music in general. But if I had a hype song
Before a big moment.
before a big moment, I think would be Hustlin' by Rick Ross. I think that's the first song that I thought of because I think it shows you hustled and you put the work in to be in that successful moment, right? But that was the first song that popped up in my head.
I think music is so important. I told you this when I ran the half marathon. I had Eminem's Till I Collapse. I played it, I am not joking, like 10 times in a row. After
Yes.
mile 10, and you know this as an athlete, there's a point where you have to just elevate by default. What's your go-to way to recharge when you need a mental health day?
I love climbing. So typically I like to boulder. So downtown in San Antonio, we have the armadillo boulders. And so I would do that every weekend. Now it's not as often because of just life in general, but lately I've been going back into it. So I do like at least once a month. But I would say climbing, it's your entire body being connected together. And I think my mental doesn't have a choice to feel the way that it feels other than to help the rest of my body move wherever I need to go. And so I feel like that has always been a really good reset for me. And then ironically enough, scary movies is also something I like to do to like reset everything. And I think it balances out my feelings and I love horror films.
What's your biggest strength?
Honesty. I think my biggest strength is honesty and I think it's also the golden rule that we were put on growing up is like treating people the way you want to be treated. I think that's what's made me so successful and not just as a coach, but as a counselor. And I think being authentic is also my biggest one. I don't put this mask on thinking I'm a certain way anymore. I did when I was younger because
Yeah.
you're growing up, you're not fully matured and you're hanging out with people you don't know are your true friends, right? And so I think I always had this mask on that I had to be a certain way. As I've gotten older, I've kind of just chucked it behind me. So I think that is my biggest strength is trying to be as authentic and honest as possible to people and just treating people the way that they should be treated.
Do you think that too many people take things personal?
100%. Especially I think in today's generation of individuals, I think a lot of people take too much literally when you shouldn't need to.
Why do you think people have a hard time with taking things personal?
I think the biggest one could be because they don't want to be proven wrong. They don't want to be proven that there are other solutions because it's not what they came up with. And I think it goes back to what we've, I think, mentioned before about being superior to others, especially when we're referring to minorities to the regular population. You hear a minority tell someone else that's not the same certain things, and then they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. There's this whole stereotype, especially for us as Latinos, especially like that was something I think I was very worried about when I started in my program was like I'm the youngest in my group in the program. And so my thought was like, okay, well, I graduate at 27. How many older adults are going to actually listen to me? One, because of my age. Two, I'm a male. And three, I'm a Hispanic. And I'm talking to a white individual who's could be working for a massive corporation or, whatever it is, male, female, I mean, whatever. That was my biggest fear was like, okay, are they going to take me seriously? Are they just going to be like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm going to go to someone else who knows what they're doing. And I think that has always been my biggest fear. But surprisingly, I've been proven wrong so far. And I hope it stays that way because I think it needs to be counselors in particular should not have to be feeling that way. I think that's why our percent is continuing to stay low because it's, again, off of assumptions. And I told you, I feel very honored and lucky to be around people who don't think like that, whether it's with my own coworkers or clients that I've had that I've gotten extremely lucky with. I just hope that it continues to change in that positive way than being what I was so fearful of when I first started.
We've talked about this, you and I, at the gym, but I think with Latinos and imposter syndrome is a real thing. It's almost like a daily thing that you have to remind yourself about. Because I've come across a lot of other Latinos who are in higher education, who are first generation and breaking the cycle, whether it is with education, career, breaking the cycle of toxic masculinity and being the blueprint. I think that imposter syndrome is so embedded in our culture. Why do you think imposter syndrome is embedded in the Latino culture?
I think the biggest thing on why we feel that a lot towards the Latino culture is because we're the minority. It's always been for us, any opportunity we get that wasn't on the fields, wasn't cooking, it wasn't, working on, the crops or whatever, the lowest of low. When we finally get to that position, we try so hard to stay there because we don't want to go back to what we were doing before. And so I think we start to freak out and develop those imposter syndromes because we know we're smart. Even for me, I told this to my supervisor. I said, I've been in this program for 4 years now. I've learned everything. I've done everything. But even now, I still feel like I'm going to be in a position where I'm going to just blank out and not know shit. And then I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do now? Like I'm talking to this stranger in front of me, trying to help them with their issues and I don't even know what to say or don't know how to compose the session or how to start it. It's I think in reality though it's normal because it's been like that for so long.
So you're saying it's cultural trauma.
I think so. I truly believe that that is a factor for sure. I don't think it's the definite answer, but I definitely think culturally it has always been like that. And I think it's our generation now that, like you said, it's trying to break that cycle and being confident.
I think there's an issue with taking up space for Latinos. And it's like you finally get the job and you don't want to make any noise because you finally got the job. You're finally the teacher. You're finally the principal. You're finally the CEO. So you don't want to take up any space. I mean, you don't want to make any noise. You don't want to rattle any cage because, again, even for myself, my grandmother couldn't read or write, right? So I come from a space where that's what I saw. So you get to grade school, you get to college, you get to high school, you get to your master's, and you're like, oh shit, oh my God, I'm the first one doing it. And you realize, okay, I'm not an imposter. I got here by my work ethic. There's been times when I've been at the seat of tables where there's CEOs, VP, we're all directors, and I have to literally remind myself as I'm presenting in front of a CEO, you earned the seat here. The insecurity starts to creep in, and you're like, wait a minute. Oh, shit. You start thinking about the past. You start thinking about maybe they just passed me because I don't know. They liked me. The amount of thoughts that cross your head when you're in the process of imposter syndrome is insane.
And it's funny you said it like that because my client that I had before that I mentioned earlier that is around his 20s also, he actually had an interview this past week and during our previous session before his interview, I said, you need to go in there because he had asked me, like, what would you recommend? I should be sitting, standing. I said, man, you just got to walk in like you already got the job. And he was like, what? I said, yeah. I said, you need to walk in like you have the job or walk in with the notion that these guys need you in this position and that you're as enthusiastic and you're honored to be there. And I think with what you mentioned too, Paul, about those consistent thoughts that come into your head, it's my biggest one has always been this can go away as fast as you got it. And it's like, fuck, I don't want that to happen either. And you're tiptoeing over glass, trying to make sure you don't cut yourself. And then you leave a trail of blood out there. And then now everybody's looking at you. You make yourself go in with confidence, but don't go in with too much noise because if it falls back, then it's like, damn, I shouldn't have done that. And then you start getting those negative ideas in your mind.
Yeah, I always like to bring up imposter syndrome. I like to bring up taking up space because I think people, I'll even speak for myself with individuals like myself who may be more vocal, who may have no problem taking up space. I think people think that you're born that way, but it's work. Like people would think, oh, you're an extrovert. You just talk to anyone, and I'm like, yeah, but that's also work. I don't wake up just always being this way. Like it takes effort and work.
So let me tell you something now that you said that, because I had a session yesterday with my supervisor and the client said the same thing, or we rather discussed about the difference between extroverts and introverts. Extroverts, when they're outdoors and they're outgoing, that is how they naturally recharge. So a good example that she gave, which I'll give here, is like during COVID, all of us extrovert people were losing our marbles because we had to stay inside when introverts were thriving.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that is something I agree is like you can say you're an extrovert when you need to be, but like you said, it takes work because you can talk to everybody, you can talk to anybody, can talk to anybody. But if you're a true introvert, you get exhausted and you don't normally do that. So you're freaking drained by the end of the time of work or communicating with whoever you're talking to at a party. I mean, whatever. Then an extrovert would be arriving and can do it all day, the whole day. Like for me, I'm definitely an extrovert because I can't stay inside at my house for too long or else I feel sick. And I have to be outside and get some sun. So it's funny that you were talking about that because we literally had a conversation a couple of days ago about it.
I think innately that I am slightly more introverted. I just think that I play extrovert well. I think that's where people get confused with me. It takes effort to be an extrovert. What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you as a student?
I almost wanted to quit. I wanted to quit the program completely. I think it was just the imposter syndrome of not being able to confidently go to someone in person and being able to be like, hey, let's talk about this and start developing a plan in sessions to talk about, what it is that you're going through. And I think it was more of like I was getting kind of not necessarily cold feet, but I was starting to get like, oh shit, this is about to be real life.
Mhm.
And I think for me, it was like I've passed all the groups within the classroom, like role playing. I've passed all of the essays that we had, the multiple choice quizzes, online discussions, like all the educational stuff. I was freaking successful in, and I was very impressed. But when it came to this current semester of like me putting it aside basically until the end, I was like, I remember telling my mom, I was like, Mom, I don't know if I can do this now. And she's like, what are we talking about? I'm scared of this new schedule. I don't know about how I can balance it. And like, well, you won't know unless you try it. And she's like, and if after you've tried it, you still feel the same way, then do something different. Stick to just coaching, stick to getting a degree in coaching or kinesiology or psychology kinesiology. And I'm honestly grateful for not doing the initial reaction because now I love being where I'm at. I love the people that are there. I love my clients. And so, yeah, I was almost at a breaking point, but I'm grateful I did it and I kept moving forward.
What advice would you give to other young Latinos who want to pursue careers in mental health or in coaching?
In terms of coaching, I would say to young Latinos that, I mean, even to counseling perspective, and as I mentioned in the very beginning of this podcast, they play so much in hand to hand, but not just with the fitness and expressing feelings. It helps create a better version of yourself. And if you're the types of individuals who want to strive to be better people, I think even if you decide not to do coaching or counseling, just seeing a therapist and joining a gym just to do it, I feel like are so healthy choices to do that you and I think that's the other thing, like we mentioned before, I can't make anybody do anything. You can't make anybody do anything. It's got to be purely because they want to. And I think between those two careers or these two opportunities, it's a matter of if you want to live a long, functional, happy, and sustainable life, fitness in any type is something I would always recommend because of all the good benefits. I mean, you know, Paul, I know you feel great and you get to meet wonderful people. You create relationships, you build a community, different communities within the community. And I think in the counseling perspective, it's the same thing. You are able to break that stigma of, especially for our community, you know, being able to have a voice and being able to express those things that we've been bottling up for so long because it's not the norm. But once you get to break that comfort zone and you start just speaking about it out loud, you feel so much better. And some people get emotional because they get to finally say it, what they've been holding back for so long. And then they realize, like, damn, I needed that. And it's like, yeah, everybody needs it. I think if you're wanting to have a sense of clarity within your mental self and you're wanting to live a long, successful, or have a longevity of a healthy life, both of those things, I think, go hand to hand with each other. But whether you want to coach or you want to be a therapist, that's entirely up to you guys. It's just a matter if you are wanting to do those things, I think do it with the same thing my supervisor said, be genuine, treat people the way you want to be treated, and do it because you love it, not because you have to.
That's some good advice. What's the legacy you hope to leave in the gym and in people's hearts as a therapist?
I would say for my legacy, I want people to leave, whether it's the gym or my sessions as a counselor, to be able to walk out wherever they're going and be able to say, I'm glad that I put my trust in him and I'm glad that he treated me as genuine and as authentic as he could. He did it because he enjoyed it. So I think just if people can just acknowledge that I was as genuine as I could be, I think that would mean everything.
How would you help people break the stigma of mental health as a Latino?
I feel like it's just a matter of explaining, like everybody goes through shit and everybody bottles everything behind and they isolate themselves and they put themselves in these difficult situations because they're afraid to speak up. Doesn't do anybody any good, but hurt yourself. I would break that by just explaining like, dude, you're not hurting anybody but yourself. With you talking to me, who's also a Latino, should know, like, I get it. I get the struggles that our past relatives and people have gone through, whether it's immigrating here or our current family members who are working on the fields, whether it's through oil or crops or whatever, you know, that they are in that generational phase and we are the ones that have the ability to change that. And it's our job as a group to emphasize the importance of it and just advocating that it doesn't change who you are as a Latino, it doesn't change who you are as a person, but makes you a stronger person. I feel like that's what I would say for sure.
Well, Jacob, I want to thank you for being on the Generation Latino podcast. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your outlook. Again, very fascinated by the way you view life as a Latino, as a straight man, as a man who is very involved with their mental health, very involved with fitness. It is admirable to just watch the way that you navigate life. You are still very young and very aware and alert. So it truly has been a pleasure just talking to you, chatting with you. I know in the gym we have a lot of deep conversations about various topics. I think this is the only way that our culture is going to be able to keep breaking the stigmas. Having young generations, older generations talk about issues that we all relate to, talk about things that we no longer want to be silent about.
Mhm.
And mental health is something that I'm a huge advocate for, physical health as well. And I think people think that there's a certain time to go into therapy and a certain time to hit the gym. And I always say the time is now. I think just continuing to talk and get people's stories out there is extremely beneficial. And I say this, but my whole premise of this podcast is to help other Latinos, whether you're gay, straight, Latino, black, white. I have listeners that are not Latino that can
Yeah.
still benefit from your story. I have listeners who are men, female, all different races from all over the world. And I appreciate that you shared your story and your vulnerability with me. So thank you for being on my podcast.
I think if everybody can just talk and observe before they speak, I think can change a lot of things within our society because we don't do enough of that. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you. And I will see you in the gym tomorrow morning.
Sounds good.